joins us to talk about top issues facing the state. Be sure to watch C-SPAN's Washington Journal, live at 7 Eastern Wednesday morning. Join the discussion.
And live now to Cedar City, Utah, for a debate between former presidential candidate Republican Mitt Romney and Democrat Jenny Wilson. The two are vying to fill the seat now held by Senator Orrin Hatch, who is retiring. This is hosted by the Utah Debate Commission at Southern Utah University. The Cook Political Report lists this race as solid Republican. Live coverage here on C-SPAN, your primary source for campaign 2018.
From the campus of Southern Utah University in Cedar City, the Utah Debate Commission welcomes you to the Senate Candidates Debate.
Good evening, and welcome to a debate between the two major party candidates running for Utah's open seat in the United States Senate. My name is Bruce Lindsay, and it is my pleasure to moderate this evening's debate, sponsored by the Utah Debate Commission. This event, held live on October 9th, is part of the Utah Debate Commission's work to educate voters and to encourage the civil exchange of ideas. Candidates Mitt Romney and Jenny Wilson are here with us on the campus of Southern Utah University in Cedar City. They are competing for the U.S. Senate seat currently held by Orrin Hatch, who is not seeking re-election. During this debate, Councilwoman Wilson and Governor Romney will be responding to questions that I will ask, as well as questions submitted on the Utah Debate Commission website. We will also be taking questions from a political journalist and a student here at Southern Utah University. Max Roth is a reporter for Fox 13 in Salt Lake City, and Cammie Matthews is the student director of the Levitt Center here at SUU, where she is a graduate student in interdisciplinary studies. If you're watching or listening to this debate live, we encourage your questions on social media using the hashtag UTDebates. We will include as many of your questions as we can. The Utah Debate Commission has established a format that includes 1-minute answers from each candidate, along with the opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal if desired. At my or a panel member's discretion, we may pose a follow-up question. Candidates will have 30 seconds to answer those. A coin toss this afternoon determined that Mitt Romney will respond first to the initial question, and then we'll alternate who answers first on the remaining questions throughout this debate. And by the way, having already referenced the candidates' current or former political titles, I will omit those titles from this point on this evening. So, Jenny Wilson and Mitt Romney, welcome to you. Let's get started. Let me stipulate that both of you have graduate degrees from Harvard University. And let's also stipulate that last month, Gallup reported that 76% of Americans disapprove of the job that Congress is doing. So, by way of introduction, please tell us, Utahns, in 1 minute, why you want this job. Mr. Romney.
Well, first of all, let me tell you that I very much appreciate the folks here at Southern Utah University for welcoming us. The Thunderbird fans who are here this evening, appreciate their support. And I also want to indicate that Jenny Wilson and I have known each other for a long time. We worked together at the Olympics. We're friends. Our families are friends. Utah would not be in bad shape with either one of us representing our fine state. At the same time, we have different governing philosophies. And I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, and I believe that we should have smaller government and lower taxes. And I frankly believe that one of the best things we can do to finally rein in the excessive spending in Washington is to take a lot of the programs that are in Washington and to eliminate them or send them back to the state. Because I'm convinced that states know better how to care for their people than the federal government does. I think Utah knows better how to take care of our roads, how to care for those that don't have insurance, how to help the poor, how to improve our schools, how to manage our public lands. Look, in the final analysis, I think Utah knows better how to run Utah than Washington does. So in my view, this is an election between two good people I respect and admire. Jenny Wilson, and hope that we'll be able to have a wonderful evening tonight. And I believe that either one of us can make things better in Washington than the way they are now.
Thank you, Mr. Romney. Jenny Wilson, same question. Why do you want to be Utah's next senator?
Well, thank you. And I want to thank the audience and the organizers. I'm so happy to have my parents here, my kids, my husband. It really is a treat to be here. So thanks to all. But I mainly want to thank you watching at home. You are the reason I got into this race. I'm a fifth-generation Utahn. I'm from here, and I'm proud to serve on the Salt Lake County Council, where we work across party lines. And to answer your question, we have seen and I have heard on the doorsteps, I have reached out and engaged with people, this very deep frustration. And I'm telling you, I get it. And I think to change Washington, we're going to need a new generation of leaders who are from their communities, who know the people, who have worked to solve local problems. That is what I represent. And I'll be honest, I've heard on some doorsteps that we need to break up the old boys club known as the U.S. Senate. That is one of my objectives. So thank you. I look forward to a great discussion today, and I really do. I'm very, very pleased to be here.
Thank you both. I don't suspect we need rebuttals on your reasons for running. More than 1 in 5 Utahns now are in jobs that are tied to international trade. Nearly 90 years ago, there was a senator from Utah, Senator Smoot, who led a fight for import tariffs with the intent of protecting America's farms and factories. And those tariffs led to a trade war that most economists agreed turned the stock market crash into the Great Depression. But give one Utah senator credit for making a difference, all right? The question is, why has Congress ceded authority over tariffs to the president? And if you're not content with that arrangement, the status quo, what would you do as one senator from Utah to change that? Jenny Wilson.
Well, good question. We know tariffs are hurting our pocketbooks. They're hurting our workers. They're hurting our ag industry. And I think we've just seen, frankly, too much agreement on many issues between this president and this Congress, and it's about time we change that. I think we've seen far too much willingness to let the president have his way on these things. And I wonder, when will the next shoe drop with this president when it comes to a very reckless policy? I'm going to share one example. Salt Lake County, I'm a county elected, we do budget adjustments on a very regular basis. And we not long ago had a budget adjustment for $2 million, our rec budget, on a new center. It was a $20 million center in Draper, a rec center. And that is unexcusable. We're going to see a big hit on our new airport, our international airport, as well as the new prison. And we're seeing the trickle down in the community. This needs to stop.
Thank you. Mr. Romney.
Bruce, this is an important question, and I'm one of those people who believes that trade is good for Utah and trade is good for the nation. We win when we trade, when there's a level playing field. But now and then we find countries that are not playing by the rules. And China has gotten away with, well, not literally murder, but China has gotten away with unfair trade practices year after year after year. And the president and a number of people in my party feel it's important to put some pressure on China to get them to come to the table and change some of their operating practices as it relates to stealing our intellectual property, taking companies that have technology and insisting that to come to China they have to give that property to the Chinese. This is simply unacceptable. And so the president has been using tariffs as a way to get people to come to the table. And the best result of that was what happened with the new NAFTA agreement. Because there's no question, tariffs are harmful for our people. We're paying this cost. It's a tax on us. But by virtue of the talk about tariffs, he got Canada and Mexico to come together. And part of the result of the new NAFTA is we will be able to sell more dairy products into Canada. That helps our dairies like Gibson Dairy. That also allows us to sell more hay and wheat into Canada. These are going to create more opportunities for Utah farmers, and the Utah agriculture community needs that kind of help.
Thank you. Let's move on with a question from Max Roth on our panel. Please, Max.
Yeah, I want to ask about the federal budget deficit, which is ballooning under the current administration and the current Congress. The Congressional Budget Office says it's going to top $1 trillion a year by 2020. Now, Ms. Wilson, you say that the tax cuts that were recently passed are too favorable to the wealthy. Governor, you say we need to address entitlements, Social Security, and Medicare. I wonder, the two of you have talked about working so well across the aisle and working together. Ms. Wilson, would you agree if the governor's willing to say that he would take back those tax cuts on the wealthy, that you would consider raising the retirement age by a couple of years because Americans are living longer than they did when these entitlements were passed?
Well, good question. And I had the opportunity to work for Bill Orton years ago, and he was a true deficit hawk. And that was the 90s. And since then, we actually have indexed Social Security. So we are seeing this upward incline in the ages right now. So I would be willing to go to the table and discuss everything that we can discuss, but not on the backs of our seniors and people in need. The wealth disparity right now in this nation is killing us. And this tax bill, I can't imagine adding $2 trillion additional dollars burden on people as a corporate giveaway, as you pointed out. You mentioned corporations benefiting. I have very deep concerns. Giveaways to the very wealthy, and I'm somebody who likes to find consensus. So everything's on the table for discussion, but not on the backs of our citizens.
Boy, I sure agree with that. We're certainly not going to change Medicare or Medicaid or Social Security for our seniors. For young people coming up, the program needs to be modernized to make sure it's going to be there for them. But we also have to be very serious about creating economic growth, because probably the most effective way of reducing the burden of our national debt is by having the economy grow so quickly that people are able to get better jobs, higher wages. As they get higher wages, they're paying more taxes. That allows us to pay off some of this debt. But there's no question we have to cut back on some of our excessive spending. And as I mentioned in my opening comments, the best way to cut back on spending, in my view, is to eliminate programs that are old and unnecessary, and those that we like, send them back to the states. Let the states manage the Medicaid, which is the health care plan for the poor. Let's make sure that Utah can run our own Medicaid program and care for our poor in the way we think best. I'm convinced that states are the place to manage budgets. Look at the state of Utah. We have seen balanced budgets every single year. That kind of approach would be desperately needed in Washington. I hope that I'll be able to take it there.
Jenny Wilson, if you'd like 30 seconds for rebuttal.
Yeah, I would. This is an area that we do have a difference. I am concerned about the comments that you have made supporting this budget with a $2 trillion increase, all the while saying that you're a deficit hawk. And I just don't think that that's genuine to offer that when indeed we know we continue to have a burden due to that additional amount. Additionally, we don't get to live an alternative universe to see where we would be if we didn't have this tax bill go into place only 9 months ago, 10 months ago. We don't get to live in that. We know that we had a very strong economy at the time that that bill was signed into law and went into effect.
Mr. Romney, 30 seconds.
Yeah, you mean the tax cut, not the budget, right?
The tax cut.
The tax cut, yeah. Because we really haven't seen a budget. I'd love to see a budget out of Washington, and I haven't spoken about supporting a particular budget. Other than the continuing resolution and the massive deficits, I'll vote no on those. But in terms of the tax cut, the things about it I liked, things I didn't like. I did not like the fact that taxes got reduced on higher income people. And if that comes back where we get the chance to vote whether that's going to be permanent or not, I'm not going to vote for lower taxes for high-income people. Rich people don't need a tax break. But I do believe that bringing the corporate tax rate down to 25%, that was the number I preferred as opposed to 21, but bringing the corporate tax rate was essential for us to keep from companies leaving our country and going other places and taking away our jobs. We had to be competitive with other nations, bring those jobs here. That's how to get wages up and how to get the Treasury to get more revenue.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Cammie Matthews, student from SUU, with a question. Mr. Romney would respond first.
In 2017, President Trump signed a bill rolling back an Obama-era regulation that made it harder for people with mental illnesses to purchase a gun. Should there be harsher regulations on purchasing firearms in the U.S.?
When I served as a governor, I saw the people on the right and on the left relating to guns, the pro-gun lobby, the anti-gun lobby, come together and fashion a bill they both agreed on. It was very different than what you see in Washington, where people talk and get angry with one another. I don't believe we need new federal gun legislation. I believe that legislation relating to guns, and particularly those things that relate to safety, school safety and the like, those things should be fashioned at the state level, because frankly, our state is different than New York State, for instance. And I don't think a one-size-fits-all approach is the right way to go after gun legislation. So for me, keep this at the state level. Let people in Utah have the choices that we're going to make about honoring the Second Amendment and also managing our own rights with regards to firearms and other matters of safety.
Jenny Wilson.
Well, an important question. And to answer it, I think the best that I can do is to read you a statement. Deadly assault weapons have no place in Massachusetts. These guns are not made for recreation or self-defense. They're instruments of destruction with the sole purpose of hunting down and killing people. Now, this was your office. It was July 2004. It was a press release. Additionally, in the 2008 presidential campaign, you stated you would sign a federal assault weapon ban. I agree with your statement. I do support strengthening our gun laws. Hope and prayers are not enough with the terrible devastation we're seeing in schools. I was in Las Vegas shortly after the horrible shooting there. It was 4 footballs away that gun carried to provide that level of devastation. It's time we do something.
Keep it to 30 seconds. We'll give you rebuttals.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the part that I also described, which is the pro-gun lobby and the anti-gun lobby came together in Massachusetts when I served as governor. Worked out a bill that said, look, we're going to ban assault weapons, but we're going to allow guns to be used in hunting in places they had not been used before, so both sides came together. That's the way I like to see things happen. I like Republicans and Democrats to work together. And my view is we do not need new federal gun legislation. The right place to care for our Second Amendment rights is to live within the Constitution and to let the people in Utah and the legislators in Utah make those choices.
Jenny Wilson.
Just a brief comment. I guess we're going to play multiple choice, Mitt, because you've said one thing when you went to run for governor, another thing as governor, then you went off to run for president, and now you're seeking to serve us in the U.S. Senate from Utah. I don't know if it's A, B, C, or D, but I see that it does change.
Ms. Wilson, I'm just going to point out, I ran for president twice. Both times I said I would not favor new federal gun legislation. That continues to be my position.
We're going to move on. This question comes from the web, the Utah Debate Commission website, from Michael Sackley of St. George. And Michael writes that it's predicted that Medicare will be unable to fulfill its obligation to seniors as early as 2026, and Social Security could follow suit in 2035. The question has 2 parts. Can these programs be saved? And if so, how would you work through partisan gridlock to cut spending or raise taxes to fund these programs for the longer term? That would be Jenny Wilson.
Well, thank you. It speaks to the earlier question as well, and I really believe that there are ways to reform. We can come together. It was something that I was very comfortable doing, working with Congressman Bill Orton in the 90s. I do it on the Salt Lake County Council. There are 5 Republicans, 4 Democrats there. We actually get things done. We work across party lines, and I really believe that America is best when we find solutions. Specifically to reform, I do think that we can find in Medicare and Medicaid opportunities to save. There is no doubt. The idea that we keep running government by continuing resolution, that we are not coming together for really smart solutions that eliminate programs that aren't good and wasting government. I said it earlier, I will not make reforms on the back of people who need them. We have far too much of a break between the wealthy and the very needy in this community and in this nation, and I won't do it on the backs of them.
Bruce, you said at the outset that Medicare and Social Security, the programs that our seniors rely upon, are coming up against bankruptcy at some point. And so we're going to have to be serious about saying, what are we going to do to save them? And there are really 2 approaches. One is to dramatically increase taxes. I oppose that. The other is to say, for current seniors, no change. For people coming along that are in their late 50s, no change. You can't change the deal when people are getting close to retirement. But for young people that are looking to these programs, they need to be told that the programs are going to change. The retirement age needs to go up by a year or 2 for them. And the benefits for higher income individuals have to be lower They can't grow as fast as they can for lower income people who need those dollars. You make those changes now, and we can save those programs from ultimate bankruptcy and preserve them for current seniors and for young people coming along to know that they will be there. We've got to be honest with the American people, and this is something that could be done with Republicans and Democrats. There's got to be the effort to reach across the aisle. I did serve as governor in a state where my legislature was 89% Democrat. We got a lot done. I know how to work with people that we don't always see eye to eye, but we found some common ground.
You want a rebuttal? You want to move on? Let's move on. This question has been asked by a lot of people submitting a version of this question. The Constitution gives senators the duty and the power to approve or reject a president's judicial nominees. We've just witnessed that with the confirmation of Justice Kavanaugh. Many people have asked some version of this question, separate from the outcome of that party line vote. Were you satisfied with the process? And if not, are there any improvements to the judicial confirmation procedure moving forward that you, as a senator, could bring about? Mr. Romney.
You know, I'll mention what Chief Justice Roberts said, and that was that this process is awful. The process for confirming a nominee to the Supreme Court is simply a mess, and we saw it explicitly over the past several weeks, and frankly, even beyond that. I think both parties can be blamed for some of the abuse associated with this process, and believe that we have to have a process where everything is brought forward at the beginning that represents a challenge, where the FBI does a thorough background vetting that both parties believe has been complete, and that is provided to the committee before the process of confirmation occurs. We also have to have, in many cases, hearings held in private, so that accusations and counter-accusations and so forth are not going to cause someone to be so brutally affected in the public view as was Professor Ford, and for that matter also Judge Kavanaugh. This has become far too partisan. It used to be that we recognized that when you elected a president, why, that president was going to choose someone in their party or someone of their political instinct, and everybody got behind him, almost everybody. That's changed. We got to go back.
Jenny Wilson.
Well, I found the process heartbreaking. And again, having worked in Congress in the 90s, it was divided then. This was unbelievable. And I really felt frustrated, heartbroken. I think we could have taken more time. I don't believe that arrest investigation is going to lead, now that Judge Kavanaugh is soon to be confirmed, to a really steady next step within our country. So I do think that we can have the Senate come together and come up with a different round of rules. That's necessary. I felt, you know, it was heartbreaking for her, a woman who had suffered something horrible in her past, to show the courage to step up, to come before that very intimidating body and answer some very personal questions in such a public way. And I also feel that the rushed manner in responding and the push to a quick FBI and not full FBI investigation was truly devastating. And we can do better. I think we need a new generation, again, who will step up, will join the reformers in the Senate and say enough is enough. How can we, with whatever point, whether it be a year, 2, or 5, we go about this again, do it with more respect, more understanding? Sure.
So I'm hearing from both of you, broken and partisan and heartbreaking, but can you give any specific procedural changes in the Senate that you would espouse that would provide a framework and a structure to prevent that same kind of a scene happening again? 30 seconds, please.
So yes, I think that the first thing to do is bring the Senate together, and perhaps there's a method where a select group of senators can be deputized with several appointed to go in and review initially some of, not just an FBI report, but also allow the witnesses to come forward first. And maybe that would allow a little more comfort than such a public display. So that's one thing. But I think it really speaks to the question of the Senate being willing to work across party lines again and come together.
Specific preemptive remedies for this?
Yeah, the key is, in my opinion, to have a deadline for senators or others to bring forward complaints, concerns, and accusations, such that there's sufficient time then to investigate those things before the public hearings begin. That's part one. And part two, if there are things that are of such a sensitive nature that they can't be held in public, that private hearings are scheduled so that people's lives are not disrupted by the process. So those are two reforms, and I totally agree with Ms. Wilson. I keep on wondering, we've known each other for so long, I keep on wondering.
We can do the Mitt
and Jenny thing.
Okay.
All right, so I agree that the process is a mess, and I think people on both sides of the aisle are recognizing that, and there's got to be a way to get some people together to fix it.
Okay, we'll continue the Mitt and Jenny debate here with another question from Max Roth, please.
All right. As of last month, there were 12,800 underage illegal immigrants in federal detention centers. A lot of their families would have come to pick them up as they have in the past, but they're too scared of the current zero tolerance policy. So they're just there. And as I was researching this, I came across this picture. This is a young girl. She's 2 years old. Her name is Fernanda. She has not seen her family in months. She was in court in New York City alone last week. What is your responsibility, Ms. Wilson, first, for Fernanda?
Heartbreaking. I remember in the 90s, again, working on this issue. We haven't had any substantial immigration reform in decades. It's time that Congress comes together and solves this problem. My immigration policy addresses a few things. One is, first, that it be comprehensive. We need to get away from the broken policies that are harming us and that are very much shared by this particular young person's story. My immigration plan, and I put it out there, you can go ahead and read it. One of the things I've done time and time again on this campaign is detailed policies. The immigration reform package that I support focuses on comprehensive, compassionate, and family-centered. And I do think this is a difference between us. I believe that we can find solutions to bring people out of the shadows. We can invest more on the border where we have a better safety net and opportunities to help people who are waiting for their asylum hearings, who have been separated. The solution to this is a family-centered and compassionate, comprehensive immigration reform.
Immigration, family separation.
Yeah, this was a heartbreak. This was a dark chapter in American history, to see children separated from their parents and to see, as you've described, a young child that hasn't seen their parents in a long time. This is inexcusable and can't go on. With regards to overall policy related to immigration, look, I think we have to have a secure border, a southern border. I think we have to have an e-verify system that allows us to punish companies that hire people who've come here illegally, where they have not checked to see whether those people are here illegally or not. And I think we have to say, for the 1.8 million dreamers who've come here, that by virtue of having come here and relied upon the promise that was made by a prior president, President Obama, they relied upon that promise, I believe, and President Trump has said the same thing, that they ought to be able to stay in this country legally. I also believe that if they want to become citizens, that they should have the opportunity to get in line with everybody else, no special pathway, but get in line, and ultimately, hopefully, become citizens. So this is such a mess. I think Ms. Wilson and I can agree on this. Year after year after year, we talk about immigration, and nothing gets done. And whoever of the two of us gets there, let's, for Pete's sakes, pull people together and say, let's get something done. This is inexcusable in America's history and for humanity.
I think Cammie had a follow-up question related to the specifics of DACA.
Yeah, led perfectly into it, actually. So there are estimates that there are about 10,500 dreamers here in Utah, some of which attend Southern Utah University with me. So I want to know if there should be a path for citizenship for undocumented immigrants and what should happen with the DACA program.
That's a path to citizenship, not just legal status. Is that your question?
Yes.
And that would be Mr. Romney.
Yeah, for me, as I indicated in the earlier answer, which is I believe that these DACA individuals should be told they're allowed to stay in the country. They're given legal status. They would receive identification that allows them to go to school here, to work here, and to make this their home. If they want to become a citizen with the rights of citizenry and being able to vote and so forth, then they would get in line with other people that also want to become citizens. And of course, I would note that favoring as I do a system that rewards merit, meaning does someone speak English? Do they have some of the skills we might need, whether this is high-tech skills or just low-tech skills, working in agriculture, for instance, where we need people in dairies and so forth. People who have the skills we need, come on in, you move to the top of the line. So stay in the country legally, become citizens if they want to by getting in line, no special pathway, but getting in line with all the other people that want to come here.
Jenny Wilson.
Well, I think you've just proved a comment you made earlier on the campaign that you're more hawkish than Trump on this issue. And I find it heartbreaking to think that young people who have come here, many of them I've gotten to know, I've looked in their eyes and talked to them about their hopes and their dreams and their college. And to think that we would have them stand in line, they did not come by their own volition and wait, it isn't okay. I think it's time that we let people step forward, a path to citizenship. Initially, I'm good with the idea that they get full protection from Congress. I think that needs to happen, and that they move towards citizenship. But full legal protection, it should happen now. Additionally, we need to find methods to get people out of the shadows, the families around them. We don't have a good solution. I wish that we did. I wish there was a good solution, but I will not accept a solution that breaks apart families and has people returned overseas when they're the sole breadwinner in a family. Separating families is not a Utah solution.
Thank you. We're nearing the midpoint of our time tonight. I welcome you once again to this debate between Utah candidates for the United States Senate, Democrat Jenny Wilson and Republican Mitt Romney. This event is sponsored by the Utah Debate Commission. We're broadcasting live from the campus of Southern Utah University in Cedar City in the America First Event Center. The general election is November 6th, 4 weeks from today. You may cast your vote on that day in person or in advance by mail. And we're still taking your questions during this live broadcast. Use the hashtag UTDebates on Twitter or submit a question via the Utah Debate Commission's Facebook page. Let's get back to some more questions. Mr. Romney, in March of 2016, you said Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud, that he lacks the temperament to be president. A month ago, Jenny Wilson, you said the country had come to a breaking point, and until he, President Trump, is gone, we're going nowhere. You said, quote, you will support moving toward impeachment of President Trump if there is legal grounds to support it. My question to both of you is, if those words of yours accurately reflect your position on the president today. Jenny Wilson.
Well, thank you. I said if the Mueller report comes back with impeachable offenses, of course. I really believe when you look at the last month that we've gone through, and times prior to that in this nation, we are so divided. And when we have a president that ridicules people, that doesn't trust his own staff, his own cabinet, he will go in and call it an important summit on North Korea, yet basically turn it into a photo op. Yes, I have concerns. I believe and hope that the Republican Party will put up a different nominee. Indeed, if there are impeachable offenses, we see a lot of smoke around the president right now, that we would move towards impeachment. I don't have a crystal ball to see which scenario. I hope for a good Democratic Party nominee as well. I believe strongly this should be a limited presidency and to restore the beautiful nation that we have. I worry about my children and the next generation. We need to move forward. We're on pause right now with this president.
Mr. Romney, is the president still a phony, a fraud?
I don't think it makes sense to be talking about impeachment, not for a sitting president. What I do believe, and I'll describe how I feel about the president, which is that over the last couple of years, what I've seen is a number of things that, frankly, I'd have done if I'd have won, and some things I wouldn't have done. I wouldn't have backed out of the TPP, for instance. That was a trade agreement that I think would have opened up more markets for Utah agriculture, among other things. But I do agree with the tax plan overall. I also agree that the deregulation effort has been wise. I also think that the efforts that he took with regards to public land and reversed some of the extraordinary land grabs that were taken by President Obama and President Clinton, that was the right kind of move. There are, however, times when I think the president has said some things which I think are divisive or racist or misogynistic, and I will speak out about those things. I choose the things I'll say. I try and do it judiciously. I don't want to become a gadfly talking day after day about everything the president says day to day. I don't always agree with what he says, or with his tweets. But when there's something of great significance, then I will speak my mind and do my best to represent the values and feelings of the people of Utah. But I also believe that he is president and that he's doing a lot of things that are very helpful for our state, and I'll support him in those things.
As a follow-up, what things specifically has the president done to redeem himself from your earlier judgment?
I'm not going to characterize specifically my comment in that regard in the past. I'm going to talk about the future and where we're going at this stage. What he's done positively, in my view, is take action that has helped encourage our economy to add thousands upon thousands of new jobs, to allow us to have more markets to go into. We now have a new deal both with Canada and with Mexico. That's encouraging. On the North Korea front, I don't want to be too optimistic in that regard, but I think there are positive signs in that we're not seeing underground testing of nuclear weapons. We're not seeing rockets being sent to the Sea of Japan. So there may be progress there. So he's doing a number of things that I agree with, and frankly, not a lot that I disagree with. I've been concerned about the tariffs, to be honest, because I know they hurt a lot of families, a lot of businesses and employees. But I think as long as those are used to try and get better trade deals and get China in particular to play on a fair basis, that could work out well. So we'll see. But let me tell you, I call him like I see him. People know that about me. And if the president's right and on track, I'll be with him. If I think he's wrong for our state or for our country, then I'll let him know privately at first. And things that are divisive. Look, we're a very diverse country on a lot of bases. We have to come together as a nation if we're going to be strong.
Okay, to follow up to you then would be the level at which you think there are sufficient legal grounds for you to pursue that eventuality you spoke of earlier.
Are you talking about the idea? As I mentioned earlier, I don't have a crystal ball. I'm not in on the inside information that the chief investigator is working through right now. All I can say is share what I said earlier. I have concerns. We're on pause right now as a country. We're either at war with each other, Democrats to Republicans, or we see chaos, and we don't know. I mean, I think all of us are aware that on a given day, we don't know what this president will do, whether it's another destructive tariff or whether it's the latest idea in foreign policy. But it's not the steady hand we have seen by previous presidents of both parties. And that's my concern. So yes, I am going to be supporting another nominee for president. I think the Republicans need to step up. I'm frustrated that this Congress, this all-Republican Congress, is not holding this president accountable. As you referred to earlier, there are a number of tools that Congress has, and they seem to roll over a little too often to make me comfortable.
Thank you. Let's take a question from a viewer. This comes via Twitter from Bill Tibbetts. And Bill notes the nationwide housing affordability crisis is hitting Utah harder than many other states. Several members of the Senate have come forward this year with plans to address the housing crisis. Do you support any of these plans, or do you have a plan of your own? Jenny Wilson.
Well, one of the great things about the federal government when it's working is it does supply some support to our local governments and our state. And we've seen that through HHS funding. And that's provided a platform to allow us at the local level to have some tax incentives for building lower income properties. I think it's critical that those programs remain intact. This question really speaks to something that's somewhat unique to Utah right now. We have so much growth in this community and this state. There's certain counties that the growth is just explosive and is really creating a lot of incredible opportunity, but some challenges. One of them being this area and the county to the south, my county, Salt Lake County. We know that if we don't fight for housing stability, we don't build more, we don't find local and state solutions along with those federal solutions, we're not going to get anywhere. And it really is a key thing for us right now to roll up our sleeves, work together. That continuum between the federal government, the state, and the local is incredibly important with housing.
Mr. Romney.
I'm afraid the questioner's not going to like my answer, but that's this, which is, let me put it in context first. Last year, the federal government spent about $4 trillion, and it took in $3 trillion in taxes. It's about $1 trillion short. And so where do we get that trillion? Other countries loan it to us. Institutions loan it to us, and every year we pay the interest on that. Every man, woman, and child in Utah, their share of that debt is $65,000 a person. Think of that. And you're paying the interest on it every year. And so anytime grandkids. So my view is, with regards to most housing programs, let's take the dollars that have normally been sent to Washington for housing, bring them back to Utah, and let people in Utah make our own decisions, the people we elect. We only have 4 representatives, for instance, in Congress, out of 435 from Utah. If we don't like what they do, it's hard to get change. But if you bring those programs here and have the people in Utah able to vote and vote for things that we care about, then we can do a better job for our own people. Because housing programs that are going to work in Washington, D.C. or Florida are not going to be the kind of programs we need here. So more housing here, it relates to zoning, it relates to providing funding, and those are things I know something about. I want to make sure that we do a better job getting more housing for the people of our state.
We'll call time there. Rebuttal, 30 seconds if you want.
Well, I think we're playing multiple choice Mitt again. But when you look at the amount of money that you went and plead the federal government to give out when you were a candidate for governor of Massachusetts, it was extreme. There were comments made, we need more, we need more, we need more, and I'm going to be the one to go get it. And the thing about having the opportunity to run against a guy who's run for president a couple of times, it's out there. So you can go check it out. I'll tell you this. We need to continue supporting programs that are working. There are programs that are not working. Housing, support to communities, these are the critical, and we've seen some of these programs on the chopping block with this administration. Again, we are seeing such a tough time. These are the conversations I've heard on the doorsteps. People wanting housing, people wanting health care, people needing good jobs. There's a role for the federal government. I just want it to be better.
Let me admonish you, please, to stay with your times. 30 seconds.
Yeah, I'm happy if people really want to go back and look at my record as governor, but I wish it was as good as Gary Herbert's, but I tried. And Mike Levitt's, whose arena this is named after him. But we balanced the budget every single year I was governor. We put in place over a $1 billion rainy day fund, and I cut taxes 19 times with the help of a Democrat legislature. We worked together. And gee, I don't recall asking for money from the federal government, but as a governor wants to make sure that you get your fair share. But I can tell you this, I'm proud of what we did there. I'm proud of what Governor Herbert and the Republican legislature is doing here. And I can tell you, as I go to Washington, my job is not to figure out how to get more and more money out of your pocketbooks to send to Washington, but instead to get Washington dollars back to Utah where they could be spent with far more efficiency and deal with the challenges we have here in our state.
Question from a viewer via Twitter. Richard Waters asks, do you support question 1 on the Utah ballot, which would increase gas taxes to fund schools when there are hundreds of millions of dollars in potential revenue in state lands earmarked for education already? Mr. Romney.
Well, I haven't really gotten into the promoting one or the other of the ballot initiatives. There are probably 1 or 2 I'll vote yes on, probably some I'll vote no on. With regards to question 1, which is devoted to education, that's something we care very deeply about. And our governor calls himself the education governor with real purpose for that. And so I'm watching with great interest. I haven't wanted to sort of weigh in on some of these because I want people to make their own decision without trying to get a sense from where I'm going to go. But let me tell you this. I've learned, having been a governor, that the key to improving the quality of education is how much money you pay starting teachers and whether teachers have a career path that allows them to keep making more money without becoming administrators. These are some of the key things in my view. At the same time, I'll note that raising gas taxes is particularly punitive for people who live in rural Utah, have long distances to drive. People who live in Nephi, for instance, which is not quite rural, but a bedroom community in some respects for Orem, they got a long distance. And so I think we want to have the people of Utah make that decision, and I've tried to keep my hand from going on that scale.
Take a position. Jenny Wilson.
Well, thank you. I actually agree with your point about rural Utah. The proposal for this particular proposition. It's actually a guide to the legislature, this particular one. And I do absolutely believe that citizens need to send the signal to the legislature that it's time that we do more for education. I'm not sure in the end the gas tax is the best mechanism, primarily because of rural areas. I mean, my friends, my county commissioner friends who take their trucks to and from Salt Lake City, they're the ones that have shared this with me. And I've talked to people on the ground as I've traveled and talked to ranchers and farmers. There's a lot more driving in rural Utah than you see in the counties along the Wasatch Front. So I have concerns about the gas tax being the mechanism to fund education. But we know that being last in the nation per pupil is not good enough. We know that teachers are taking supplies to school. I had a comment with the teacher the other day that was just saying, please, I just need air conditioning. My students can't learn. That is not a landscape for success for our teachers or our students.
Thank you. Next question from Cammie Matthews.
Yeah, so regarding Utah and water here, we are among the driest states in the nation, and per person water usage is at or near the highest in the country. Some say that we should have harsher regulations. Others say maybe we bring water in from elsewhere, like with the Lake Powell pipeline. So what is the best plan to combat the water shortage in this state?
Be Jenny Wilson first, please.
Well, thanks. That's such an important question in a federal debate, because we have, over the last several decades, even 40 or 50 years ago, began to develop a very intense system of dams and water projects. And we had the benefit of the federal government in doing that. And that's what's been able to sustain our growth within the state of Utah. So I really believe that infrastructure development has been really key to allow our growth and development. But we're at a really, really tough point right now. We know that we have not enough water to go around. We're in disputes with other states. This is an opportunity, I think, to come together in the Senate as a stronger Western coalition. And also on the ground, I think conservationists can come together with developers and we can find these solutions. But there's an incredible amount of work to be done so that we can sustain our futures, our growth futures. And really, really key in all of this is our own personal responsibility to limit our consumption. Without that, we're not going to go anywhere.
Mr. Romney.
Yeah, a couple things there. One of the things that we benefit from is the arrangement we have with other states. We came together some years ago and decided how we would divide up the water in the Colorado River. And we're not taking as much as we have the right to take. And if we don't take our full share from the Colorado River, it ends up going to California, and they take our share. So yes, I'm in favor of building a pipeline from Lake Powell, that's part of the Colorado system, Colorado River system that is, and take that water and let it be brought into the southern part of our state, to Dixie, and use that so we can continue some of our growth here. At the same time, we recognize we're going to have to be better at conserving water. Agriculture represents about 71% of our water usage, and people in the agriculture community have gotten better and better and better at finding ways to conserve water. In our home usage, which is the next largest, our home usage is overwhelmingly for watering our lawns. And I think with time, we're going to find ways to say, look, we can find that we can save water at home also by perhaps cutting back on some of that watering and having a landscape that may not require so much water. So this is something we're going to have to address head on, because we're the fastest growing state in America. And that brings with it some real challenges. But let's get our fair share of the Colorado River.
Next question from Max Roth.
Yeah, the Kaiser Family Foundation says that 23% of Utahns, of the people who are watching right now, non-elderly Utahns, have pre-existing conditions that insurance companies could use to deny them coverage if the Obamacare protections, not allowing them to do so, were to go away. Now, the Justice Department, in a case called Texas versus the United States, has decided not to defend the protections on pre-existing conditions. What do you have to say to all of the people who want their pre-existing conditions to not be a factor in whether they can get insurance?
Mitt Romney.
I hope Republicans and Democrats can come together and say loud and clear, we are going to make sure that everybody in America has access to good health care and they can get good health insurance, and that they cannot be denied health insurance as a result of a pre-existing condition. That is just an absolute rule, and I will fight for that, and I will not support any legislation related to health care that's going to strip people away from their health care insurance that they have, or prevent people with pre-existing conditions from being able to get insurance and remain insured. Now, I think the plan that I put forward made more sense. I like the idea, by the way, when I was governor, I like the idea of states crafting their own programs to care for our own poor and to care for those people that don't have insurance. And I think you'll find some states do it one way, some do it another way. But one thing is bedrock. You can't knock people off insurance rolls, as President Obama did when he put in place Obamacare. And you can't say to people that have a pre-existing condition, you're not going to be covered. They have to be able to get insurance and then to maintain that insurance over their career. This is just bedrock principle. And so I'll note as well that a Republican plan coming up from the House, I think, is going to make it. If we have a Republican House and Senate, you're going to see us provide support for people who want to be able to buy insurance, who are making $75,000 a year and less. They're going to get something better than Obamacare.
Jenny Wilson.
Well, out of the corner of my eye, I can see my son. And I can tell you, the hardest day for me and my husband years ago, and he's so healthy and happy now, but at 6 months old, he needed open heart surgery. We were shocked. We had insurance. We lived very close to one of the best hospitals in the nation, Primary Children's Healthcare. We were supported by family. I cannot imagine a family going through what we went through without health care. I will fight for good health care coverage as your senator. I will have your back. And I can tell you this, the Affordable Care Act, it was flawed. There were issues that needed to be changed. When John McCain had that heroic downvote, that was a critical moment for our history, because I cannot imagine the chaos of starting over the next day with no safety net, with all of the expansion, the people that had come on. And there are two things that have to remain in place as we go about comprehensive health care reform. One is keeping people on their parents' health care until they're 26 years old. We have a lot of missionaries coming home here in Utah. We have people starting their careers a little late because of that and other reasons.
Because we are approaching the end and you've exceeded your time here. In fact, let's do kind of a lightning round to try to meet our end time. In 30-second responses each, tell us in 2018, what is our greatest national security threat today?
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Be Jenny Wilson.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Please keep it to 30.
Okay. Well, there are many. We know what they are. North Korea, we have challenges even still in Afghanistan. We know there are very, very serious concerns in Iran. The challenge that we have is balancing out our national security, our great defense budget, with diplomacy. Right now, we need diplomacy. We're missing that with this president.
Mr. Romney?
Of course, there are the ongoing concerns about a nuclear Iran and a nuclear North Korea. Progress hopefully is being made on those fronts. But longer term, the real challenge comes from China and from Russia, two authoritarian states that have a lot of missiles aimed at us. China's becoming an economic superpower, already is really, and will become even stronger militarily. Both of them are investing enormously in their nuclear capacities as well as their conventional military capacity and space capacities. So we're going to have to be serious about our commitment to national defense and making sure that we continue to have the lead, which we've always enjoyed.
Okay, thank you both. We've reached the end of the time allotted for you to respond to our questions, and we'll now move to 1-minute closing statements. Prior to airtime, it was determined that Mitt Romney would deliver the first 1-minute closing statement.
Well, I've enjoyed the chance to speak with you this evening, and hopefully you've gotten a perspective of both of our views. You're electing one of the two of us to a 6-year term. It's the longest term that we have in our country that you get the chance to vote for. And that really means that the issues that we face today are probably going to be different than the issues that we're going to face 4, 5, and 6 years from now. And I believe that what that suggests to you is that if you believe in a conservative philosophy, as I do, and if you believe that that philosophy and those principles are the best to keep our country strong, to keep our economy strong, to help raise wages in our country, to provide good health care to all of our citizens. If you believe those principles are the right principles for our country, I believe that I would like to have your vote, and I hope you'll be able to give it to me. And by the way, just to underscore how successful those principles have been, not just for our country, but also for our state. recognize that conservatives who run the state for some time have the fastest growing state with the lowest unemployment in the country.
Thank you. Jenny Wilson.
Well, thank you. My mission, when I serve you in the Senate, is advancing the health, security, and welfare for every Utahn in this state. I will work for you. And I can tell you, in these dark hours of division, I believe we need to put the people first. I want to thank you. You've opened me, many of you brought me into your homes. You've invited me into your workplaces. We've had amazing conversations. It's meant a lot to me. And I'm more and more convinced now that we do need that new generation of leaders who will put us first. That's what I offer. I thank you for this journey. It's been an amazing journey for my family. It's been an incredible journey for me. And I look forward to the next couple of weeks. And please vote. For those of you who choose my opponent, he's a great guy. I enjoyed my time working with you. I do hope you choose me because I am from this state. I'm committed to it, and I will serve you.
Thank you very much to Jenny Wilson and Mitt Romney for their time this evening. Also, a special appreciation to the administration, the faculty, and students at Southern Utah University for providing this wonderful venue for us tonight. Thanks also to those who asked questions, including our panelists and you who submitted questions through the Utah Debate Commission website or through social media. A special thanks goes to the Utah Debate Commission co-chairs, Scott Howell and Thomas Wright, and Executive Director Nina Sliding. And particular thanks to the many Utah broadcast stations who brought you this debate as a public service. The next live debate will be broadcast this coming Monday at 6 p.m. It will feature candidates for Utah's 4th Congressional District, Mia Love and Ben McAdams. And you can watch the entire series of debates archived on the Utah Debate Commission website. On behalf of the Utah Debate Commission, I'm Bruce Lindsay, and now let me invite our very well-behaved audience to offer the candidates their hearty applause. Good night.
With the midterm elections less than 30 days away,